Hello everyone, I'm Ranger Jasmine and welcome to another episode of At Home with the Lincolns. As we've seen in previous videos, several of the Lincolns' hired help were immigrants or from immigrant families. Springfield itself was a very diverse place with individuals born in all sorts of different places, but particularly from England, Ireland, Germany, and the Portuguese island of Madeira. From 1850 to 1860, Springfield's foreign-born population increased from 816 to 3,140 individuals, making up about 33.7% of the total Springfield population. As we shall see, these changing times meant that there were not only new faces in the city of Springfield, but new friendships formed in the Lincoln home and neighborhood. Hired help from immigrant backgrounds included primarily Irish and Portuguese individuals. The Portuguese hired help were most likely part of the group of immigrants originally from the island of Madeira, an autonomous region of Portugal. In 1849, the first group of a little over 100 Portuguese came to Springfield. The group had converted to Protestantism and fled to Trinidad from Madeira due to religious persecution. The American Hemp Company originally promised to help these immigrants then colonize an agricultural area in Illinois. But when their plan fell through, local Presbyterians in Springfield and Jacksonville rallied behind a plan to help these immigrants move into their communities instead. By 1860, there were over 200 individuals from Madeira living in Springfield. Mrs. D'Souza, one of the Lincolns' hired girls, herself was part of this group of individuals who fled Madeira and then ended up arriving in Illinois at just 6 years old. Several years later, she was hired by the Lincolns as a young woman to sew dresses for Mary. Her dresses were worn by Mary in Springfield and possibly at some events in the White House. Another way in which the Lincolns were acquainted with immigrant families was through their neighbors. One family in which they were particularly close with was the Reimann family. They lived in a house on this lot here, just a few houses north of the Lincoln home. Henry Reimann was born in Germany and met and befriended Abraham Lincoln in Vandalia. His wife, Mary Black Reimann, became a close friend of Mary Lincoln. Josie, their daughter, was almost like the daughter that Abraham Lincoln never had. He liked to carry her around and take her to the circus. Their son, Henry Reimann Jr., befriended Willie Lincoln, and the two boys exchanged letters with each other even when the Lincolns moved to Washington, D.C. Henry Reimann's sister, Julia Ann Sprigg, was also a close friend of the Lincoln family, particularly with Mary Lincoln. Born in Germany, like her brother, Julia lived in this house just across the corner of 8th and Jackson Streets, her house visible from the windows of the Lincoln home. She would look after Willie and Tad when Abraham and Mary could not, and became a close confidant of Mary's, corresponding with Mary even throughout her time at the White House and into her widowhood. Another local immigrant family which had ties to the Lincolns was the DeCristos family. Justina DeCristos was a Portuguese woman who did laundry for the Lincolns in the later part of the 1850s. She and her family lived about a half-mile northeast of the Lincoln neighborhood, close enough for Lincoln to pop over for a visit. He did this once to offer his condolences when Mrs. DeCristos' husband, Emmanuel, was killed when he was kicked by a farm mule, and also began visiting several times to play with Mrs. DeCristos' daughter, Lizzie, whom he became particularly fond of. Lincoln was known to carry Lizzie piggyback to the school and give her horsey rides on his foot, letting her straddle his shoe like a saddle while he bounced her up and down and made her laugh, chanting, "Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up." His nickname for her was Firecracker, after he saved her from a dangerous prank involving said explosives, and he continued to call her that even when she visited him at the White House after he became president. When it comes to his stance on immigrants and foreign-born individuals, Lincoln's stance was made clear in a letter to his best friend, Joshua Speed. In this letter, Lincoln condemned the Know Nothing Party, a political party with an anti-immigrant stance, pointing out that the American ideal that all men are created equal already excluded African Americans. And if the Know Nothing Party gained control, then this would cause further degeneracy of this principle by further excluding Catholics and foreign-born individuals. Lincoln expressed his personal distaste for this, declaring, "When it comes to this, I should prefer immigrating to some country which makes no pretense of loving liberty, where despotism can be taken pure, without the base alloy of hypocrisy. As we can see, the Lincolns lived in a diverse neighborhood and formed strong relationships with people from faraway places. These immigrants, like Lincoln, believed in the American dream and moved to the United States in pursuit of it. Lincoln's strong friendships and mutual respect with these individuals gives us some insight into his belief that indeed all men are created equal.